Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on the channel, Charles Morse, and this is a, video that, well, this, excuse me, this particular, video, there's gonna be a discussion on, what the action that the EU has said this was a EU official, and he said that if Vladimir Putin were to use nuclear weapons, then what would happen is there would be a total annihilation of the Russian force. Now, I call them the Russian terrorist force because they've committed war crimes for Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin himself is a war criminal. So, a EU official who has stated or said on ABC News Australia and CNN, there was an EU official that announced that there would be an entire annihilation of the Russian force if if Vladimir Putin is considering using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And it's going to look bad on Putin, for the most part, because Vladimir Putin has blamed the West for this war, and the reason that the EU is going to take its actions if Vladimir Putin considers nuclear weapons in Ukraine, the reason why the EU would annihilate all of the Russian force, or if Russia is going to attack eliminate the whole Russian force themselves with a nuclear weapon, then it could be either way. It could be either they wipe themselves out from the nuclear weapon that they're launching, or the EU would destroy the entire Russian force. Now, I call them a Russian terrorist force. Now, this kind of news coming right from the EU would be like, the kind of news that you want to hear, like, if Russia wants to continue being a threat to the whole entire world, then something's going to be done about it. And the whole entire Russian force will be annihilated by the EU if that nuclear weapon is continued in Ukraine. So far, they've suffered ballistic missile, there was damage to infrastructure, and it's been pretty terrible for the Ukrainian people. Putin knows he's losing this war, so he's going to take those extra measures to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine. If this happens again, then the EU is going to take action and annihilate the Russian force because Europe is not going to be intimidated by Vladimir Putin. This is one of the reasons why those actions are going to be taken by the EU if Vladimir Putin is considering using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And to this speech that the EU has made, that this is what the action we're going to take if Vladimir Putin decides to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, is an entire annihilation of the Russian force. And Europe is going to send that clear message to Vladimir Putin that the EU is not going to be intimidated by Vladimir Putin's nuclear weapons threat. And if Vladimir Putin is going to go try to wipe out Europe with nuclear weapons, well then Europe has the right to defend itself by wiping out the entire Russian force. I was about to say Russian terrorist force because they've committed so many war crimes, including, unimaginable crimes that you could possibly imagine. Every form of felonies that you could commit. And being a threat to people in general. Anyway, there was a big crime that they performed over there in Ukraine by Vladimir Putin, who sent them to destroy Ukraine. And if you really want to find out how much war crimes they committed over there in Ukraine, you can go check out the free. You can go check out the news media because they will tell you what war crimes they committed, including damage to buildings, killing civilians, and I'm just gonna say the word abuse because that's basically what the Ukrainian people have faced. And abuse is the right word to use for that war crime because it just fits in pretty well, that word. Like, all forms of abuse. And so, this war has been going on for like months and months and months since it started February 24th, which is almost the... But now we're in October, so this war has almost been going on for a year. Now, this nuclear missile threat, or nuclear weapons threat, coming from Vladimir Putin himself, is getting pretty worse. And the EU is about ready to take action if Vladimir Putin continues to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And even if the other if other states in Europe get targeted next for supporting Ukraine, which Vladimir Putin does not want. He does not like the support that Ukraine is getting. So, if he's really going to consider it, he would probably target other states in the EU. Because a lot of the US NATO allies are over there, and they are supporting Ukraine in this war. And if Vladimir Putin goes after the other states in Europe, then the Europeans would, annihilate the entire Russian army, or the entire Russian force. And then they would eventually go after Vladimir Putin, I would imagine. And it could just look very, very ugly for Vladimir Putin right now. So, if Vladimir Putin already knows that the EU has a plan of action that they're going to take against the Russian force, if Vladimir Putin considers to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, his consequences, Vladimir Putin's consequences, are going to be severe for him. And it is not going to be pretty. He can go forward and use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And when that action is made, Europe could do an entire annihilation of the Russian force. And Vladimir Putin may not realize the mistakes he's made until after the nuclear weapons action has been taken. And Vladimir Putin didn't care how many Russian soldiers died at the hands of the Ukrainians. He didn't care the number of people who died after drafting them into war. He didn't care about what the Russians thought about, this war in Ukraine. He didn't care for anybody. The only thing he said was, I noticed that this was a big mistake. And he said that with no feeling of any guilt for what he's done. So, yeah, Vladimir Putin is pretty stupid. And, once he sends more nuclear weapons to blow up Ukraine, then this is where the EU is going to take action against the Russian force. And they're not going to be intimidated by Vladimir Putin. And that will be the end of Russia's military, almost, and probably Vladimir Putin himself. And that's where it'll be too late for Vladimir Putin to be making a decision on, I wish I could Like, like he'd wish he could just, like, undo everything. And hopefully, Vladimir Putin wouldn't be a threat to us anymore. He wouldn't be around anymore to continue to make these nuclear threats. But you also have North Korea and Xi Jinping. Oh, let me say that again. Kim Jong-un with a nuclear attack that might be around the future. And then you have Xi Jinping, who is considering on trying to attack Taiwan. And eventually, either North Korea or China could be a big security threat to the whole entire world. And who knows? Maybe the same action that the Europeans that are taken against the Russian force will be the same for the Chinese force or the North Korean force, depending on if the nuclear threat in China is used on Taiwan, and if the nuclear threat from North Korea would be to, like, you know, blow up the whole entire world. But who knows? In the end, these countries that are on the rise of being a threat, North Korea, China, and Russia, so far, I'm going to finish this video with saying this. The whole entire world is not going to be intimidated by these countries. Russia, China, and North Korea. And if any one of them considered using nuclear weapons, then necessary action is going to be taken by either the EU, the United States, and it won't look pretty for Kim Jong-un, which Kim Jong-un is a crazy person, and Xi Jinping, which, by the way, the Chinese are protesting against Xi Jinping. And so, a lot of the world realize what's happening right now. And so far, they know, most people know, that if countries want to go and start blowing up other countries and that stuff, then that's where people are going to start having a big problem with the political leaders that are behind these attacks. And there will be necessary action taken against these political leaders like Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un if there are nuclear weapons that are going to be used to try to take out the whole entire world. This is Charles Morris. Have a good day. You know, these countries, nuclear threatening action are going to have deadly consequences that are going to be so severe they won't even know what they're in for. This is Charles Morris. Have a good day. I will see you on my next video. And be aware of what time is going to tell us next. Have a good day. I will see you all later.